agnostics, infidels, heathens, and all of you who were born right the first time. I'm Laurie Gaylor, and welcome to Freethought Radio. This is the weekend of January 8th and 9th, 2011. Freethought Radio is the weekly production of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I am an original co-founder with my mother, Ann Nicole Gaylor, back in 1976. And I remember when there were just 2 and 3 of us, and now we're 16,000 members around the country who are personally free from religion ourselves. And we work to keep the government free from religion, which is what is required by our secular constitution. And we hope someday, today in fact, you will join FFRF. Your $40 membership, that's only $10 more for household, is deductible for income tax purposes, and it does support our very important educational and legal work to keep state and church separate. And it does include a real deal. We have 10 issues a year of a newspaper called Freethought Today. It's very lively, usually a 24-pager. And we report not only on FFRF news and actions, but the state of the separation between church and state and free thought in the news. So why not go to ffrf.org, sign up, and if not, you can just ask for a sample copy of Freethought Today and more information, and we'd be glad to send that, and we would appreciate your support for this radio show and FFRF's work. And of course, by now you may have figured out, I'm all by myself this week. My co-host, Dan Barker, who I'm also married to, is home recuperating. And he had surgery to remove an impassable kidney stone, and unfortunately the surgery didn't work. And he has to go back in a couple of weeks and do it all over again. And he told me to tell you, please don't pray for him. And I should say that Dan will be back next week, and he'll be back with another Dan, that's Daniel Dennett of Tufts University, who is going to talk about his ongoing project researching ministers who are atheists, who have not yet come out of the closet. And this is a project dear to Dan's heart, my Dan's heart, since he was once, for a very short, painful interlude, one of those clergy who had lost faith but hadn't figured out a way to extricate himself from his religious career. So that will be next week. And but this week we have a very interesting show. We have 2 guests, so I really won't be all by myself. We have a news-making lineup today. In a minute, I'm going to introduce our first guest, who's a dad who says his lack of faith cost him custody. And on the second half of today's program, I'm delighted to announce that we'll be talking with Steve Trunk. He's a true atheist in a foxhole. He served in Vietnam. He has been an FFRF member and board member for decades, and he just won on Monday, on Tuesday, he won a ruling by the Ninth Circuit agreeing with him that this enormous cross on Mount Soledad in San Diego is unconstitutional. And this is a case that has been going on for 23 years. So we'll be talking with Steve Trunk on the second half of Free Thought Radio about that. Now, before I welcome our first guest, who's Craig Scarberry, I thought it would be helpful to play something from one of the many interviews he's done. This is actually an introduction that kind of covers the situation very efficiently, and this is from the Alona show.
Does having a certain religious point of view make you a better mother or father? Is that up to the courts to decide? Despite many claiming that America is a Christian nation, the legal framework of this country would by all accounts say, no, you're free to practice whatever religion you choose, and the court can't judge you on it. But one divorced Indiana father believes that he lost custody of his children because he's agnostic. Craig Scarberry had joint 50-50 custody of his 3 children with his ex-wife for 4 years, until a judge ruled last month that he'd be limited to only 4 hours visitation time per week and custody once every second weekend. Apparently, the only thing he can find is in the ruling to justify this change is a Superior Court Commissioner's comment that the father did not participate in the same religious training as the mother. Father was agnostic. It also said, quote, when the father considered himself a Christian, the parties were able to communicate relatively effectively. Communication being a key element of the divorced couple's agreement. But is that unconstitutional?
Craig Scarberry on the phone with us from Indiana to talk about what happened to him last November when a judge became aware that he had lost his faith in Christianity and had become an agnostic. So, are you there, Craig?
I am. How's it going, Annie?
Hello?
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
I'm fine, and we're talking to you from Indiana.
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks for joining us today. And you came on late. We just were playing a little bit of the Alona show. And can you tell us what exactly happened? I know that you have 3 children and you're divorced. How did you lose custody?
Well, we've been divorced for closer to 4 years than we were 3, we were able to share joint 50-50 custody, 50% legal and 50% physical custody during that time. Earlier this year, communication kind of broke down, and as things progressed, she took me back to court for modification of custody, and eventually had won her case against me, basically using my religion or my religious preference as her main focal point and attack to be able to get the upper hand inside the courtroom.
Well, I do have in front of me a copy of the order by the commissioner. This is the Madison County Superior Court, and I'm quoting from this order, quote, "Evidence indicated that the petitioner father did not participate in the same religious training that the respondent mother exercises, and that the petitioner father was agnostic." And then it goes on to state that at the time of the property settlement agreement, the petitioner father considered himself a Christian, and the parties were able to communicate relatively effectively. So that certainly does look like he took into account your loss of faith and factored that into your loss of joint custody. So that must have been quite a shock.
Oh, definitely. I still, even after a few months later, I still am in a state of shock about it. I share the same sentiment as most people who hear this story. There's got to be more. There's got to be more to the story. But essentially there isn't. There were a few other things that they brought up in court that we were able to refute and show proof and evidence towards. But ultimately, it's floored me. And my change in my personal preference did not have any effect on the children at all. And Indiana code states that the religious training can be taken into account of the children, but the point was I did not interfere with the children's religious training because we both had agreed initially in our divorce that this is where we started, and I knew that I needed to maintain status quo in order to maintain my time with those children.
Okay, I'm Annie Laurie Gaylor interviewing Craig Scarberry. He's an Indiana father who has lost joint custody of his 3 children, in part because he went from being a Christian to an agnostic. And this is Freethought Radio. We're going to be right back with this second half of our interview with Craig Scarberry. He's got a lot to tell us. It's quite an injustice. There was a big rally on December 16th that we'll hear about, and we'll hear about his appeal of this, what sounds like a total miscarriage of justice. So welcome back to Freethought Radio, Craig.
Thank you, Annie.
And now you were telling me during the break, you're in healthcare now, but you were a medic, served in the Navy, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And so at that go ahead.
I was a hospital corpsman. We actually gave care to those in the Navy and the Marine Corps.
And so at the time that you were serving, you were not one of those proverbial atheists in a foxhole, but today you're an agnostic. What is your religious pedigree?
My father is agnostic. My mother is Christian. When we were children growing up, we were definitely raised. My father, encouraged us to do what my mother wanted, and we were raised in church and had a foundation with that. And then growing, although my mother is a Christian, she always promoted us to think for ourselves and to ask questions and explore and things like that. And even though a good portion of my family are believers, they're very supportive of my personal beliefs and understand that I have the right and the knowledge to be able to make my own decisions on what I believe is truth.
And so you were going to church when you were married, I presume, or at least nominally Christian, and after you got divorced, what happened?
Well, after we got divorced, I wouldn't say that we went to church on a regular basis throughout our marriage. It was just one of those things where I had taken my religious standpoint seriously, and so I wasn't. That was something that I wasn't afraid to profess, and but I never stopped. I never stopped the inquiry. I never stopped the constant movement towards progression, and this is where, through my own experiences and reading and people that I have met and talked to, and just everything through my own logical experience, that I have ended up with myself. And I still respect the boundaries that religion can, or I still respect the role that religion can play in many people's lives, and I respect the freedoms that we have that as a veteran we protected for everybody to have in this country, and that's what makes this such a tragedy.
Now you told the Herald Bulletin newspaper, "I'm a good, loving father, and this ruling has taken my children away. I wasn't interfering in their right to be brought up in a Christian environment." You noted the children still attend a Christian school and church services as they have done in the 4 years that you had joint custody. So did your former wife just bring this up as a weapon? She realized you had changed your mind?
Right. And I've actually been agnostic, even though we were divorced for almost 4 years. I was agnostic for a little over 2 of those years. And there was no issue until she wanted to make it one. But they definitely attacked me on my religious standpoint. Her attorney wanted to, they questioned how legit my oath was, because I had to give testimony under God.
Well, but there's always a right to do a secular affirmation.
Right.
So that's really, that's a terrible thing that they would question that. You mean they did that
Right.
in the custody hearing?
Yes.
So they
the judge actually swore us all in at the same time, so we didn't really have a chance to, do it individually. And he did the under God thing. Then the attorney says, "Well, sir, if you don't believe in God and you took this oath, who's to say you're not there lying about everything you're saying right now? Well, you tell me what the oath means to you if you have to say under God." And that's when I said, "Well, it's a verbal contract to my integrity, and I'm not up here to jeopardize my integrity for you or this court or anybody else."
Did you have an attorney with you?
Yes, I did.
Because that attorney should have been able to point out you should have had the right to an affirmation.
Yes.
So now you are appealing, and you have got some support from the ACLU of Indiana. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, they're handling everything on the appeal level or on the state level with the appeal. Currently, we're trying to get a motion to stay in place where that would give me back. I would put this new order, that would set aside this new order and let the old order go back into effect with 50-50 custody until the appeals process is over, and they're also handling that.
Now you are able to see your children still?
Yes. I have standard Indiana parenting time guidelines where we alternate holidays, plus I get them every other weekend, and I'm supposed to get them for a midweek visitation session, but even though I'm supposed to get that, I've been having some issues with having my ex be compliant with that.
And they're pretty little. Let's see. The newspaper says 7, 6, and 4. So,
actually, my youngest daughter just turned 5 yesterday.
Oh,
so.
Happy birthday! Happy birthday. Her name is Ava.
Yes, Ava.
Well, if people want more information, how can they find out more about this case?
We have a Facebook page set up, the Craig Scarberry Legal Fund.